The door is open. The priest's confession. I've never been a man of the theater. Not when I first put on the cassock, in a simple little church in Belo Horizonte, nor when I was transferred to the backlands of Minas Gerais. Faith, I thought, demands silence. Conviction. Routine. But what I found in São Bento das Almas was anything but routine. The town was too small to even appear on maps. There was almost no cell phone signal, and at night, only the sound of crickets. The faith of the people there was whispered, almost like a shameful secret. They spoke softly, avoided eye contact. From the first day, I realized that something was wrong. And it wasn't with me. The warning came in a confession. Dona Antonia, with trembling hands, her veil darkened by time, said to me, "Father, she comes. Every 3-4 years. Lock everything. Don't turn on the lights." Before I could ask, who, she quickly confessed to some small mistakes, a curse word, anger at the neighbor, and ran away. I laughed inside. I thought it was just fear of the spirit. I had no idea. That same week, in the early hours of the morning, there was a knock on the door of the parish house. It was Joazinho, her grandson. 10 years old, maybe younger. Covered in dirt, pale with fright. "She's here, father," he said, his voice hoarse. He pulled me into the woods, where his father, Seu Manuel, was waiting with an old shotgun. On the ground, a deer was torn apart. But not like a hunter's victim, something had ripped it apart from the inside out. The flesh was covered in black slime. The stench was unlike that of any corpse, metallic, hurried, like meat that rots before it dies. And then we saw the tracks, enormous claws, like the legs of an animal that was walking badly, crooked, but fast. Before I could understand, a growl came from the trees. Deep, vibrating the ground. The boy screamed. We ran. And whatever it was, didn't follow us. The next day, their house was empty. As if it had never existed. I began to notice other things. Sounds coming from the church attic. A figure standing between the pews when everything should have been empty. The old confessional, the same one where I heard Antonia, began to whisper at night. I thought it was wind or a mouse. Until I opened the curtain one day and saw, a woman, pale, blurred like a reflection in dirty glass. Her lips moved too quickly, her words sounding like muffled screams underwater. I touched the wood. She was gone. I burned the confessional. But the whispers continued for 3 days. And they got worse. A man appeared. Celso, that was his name. A pressed suit, a thin mustache, a polite manner. But his eyes, black as liquid coal. No shine. He sat at the back of the mass, never taking communion. One night, he stayed until the end. He said, "Father, you saw me too. In your dreams. I just came to thank you for keeping the door open." I asked him which door that was. He smiled. A smile that was too wide. "You'll see." And he disappeared. A few days later, the parish flooded. Dark, icy water, with no explanation. I called the diocese. I spoke to Dom Renato, my superior. He hesitated, but authorized me to use the old rituals. He knew something had come loose. And then the girl came. Clarinha. Small, fragile. Dressed in light blue, too thin for the cold that day. She entered the confessional alone. I followed. She began normally, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned." But soon her voice changed. Rough, guttural, masculine. "You can't save them. They are mine now." And then she began to recite. "My chains are firm, forged in guilt. And I will drag them, screaming, into the lightless night." When I asked who was speaking, she just laughed. A laugh that was like a knife piercing my ear. Then, She disappeared. The only thing that remained was a smell of sulfur that stuck with me for days. I was called to bless a house of newcomers. Doors slammed, a woman cried every night. I went to the master bedroom. There she was, the bride. An old, dirty dress, a yellowed veil. Standing in the corner. When she turned around, her face wasn't human. Torn skin, lidless eyes, a sewn-up mouth. When I tried to throw her out, the room shook, the ceiling cracked, furniture flew. She disappeared when I lifted the crucifix. But the residents moved out days later. They left everything. One night, the church bell, cracked for decades, began to ring by itself. I climbed up to the tower. There, a hunched figure was pulling the rope. When he saw me, he lifted his head, no eyes, no mouth, just a black void. He reached out his hand. The bell rang one last time, and the thing went up in smoke. The following week, Celso returned. He was standing at the altar, floating. "You should have listened," he said. "The door is open." Before I could answer, the crack appeared. In the middle of the church. A rip in the air, as if the world itself were breaking apart. Out of it came something that shouldn't have been, claws, gray flesh, hollow eyes glowing green. A roar that made the images of the saints crack. I stepped back. I began the rite of exorcism. But the demon laughed. He broke the pews, set the altar on fire. He chased me down the nave like a wild beast. The plan was risky, to lead him to a circle of imprisonment, made under the altar carpet. I managed to lure him. When he entered, the marks glowed. The ground shook. The demon screamed, writhed. I began to chant the final prayer. By the power of Christ, I bind you. By his blood, I condemn you. The creature dissolved like burning coals in the rain. And the crack finally closed with a bang. The church was in ruins. But I survived. And by some miracle, so did the city. No one asks. No one talks about that night. The bell is silent. Celso has never been seen again. The door, if it was open, is now locked. But sometimes, in the dead of night, I still hear a whisper coming from the attic.